I'd like to thank you, Kate, and your staff, Partners in Prevention, and Mike behind the video camera for documenting this, for having me in today. And wow, what a great turnout. Thanks so much for taking lunchtime to be here. And the presentation, Teens, Alcohol, Risky Behavior, it is a problem. It has solutions. And if you get one thing from our time here together, is to walk away with one or two very concrete things that you can implement today, starting this week, with contributing to preventing or intervening on young people's alcohol involvement. Just briefly though, what, from your all's point of view in the community here, in the schools, community-based settings, parents perhaps, right at home, what are some of the problems, some of the concerns you have with young people's alcohol involvement? Why are we here? Yeah.
It concerns me that so many adults are okay with their using it.
Yes, so there's adult approval, and that really amplifies the risk for young people getting involved with alcohol. Other concerns you have in the community? Yes.
Violence and sexual assault.
Yes, it goes hand in hand with alcohol consumption. Violence, crime, sexual assault, victimization. Other concerns you have when you think about kids and drinking? Yes.
Parents' ability to take their kids into bars and have them served.
Yes, so again, looking at adult influence. What kind of influence do we have as adults in promoting drinking or preventing drinking? A couple of other concerns you all have right here in this room.
The effect on the development of the brain.
Ah, yes. The effect of alcohol on the developing brain. That's actually a nice segue into the first part of the presentation. We'll focus on the developing teen brain, and we'll take a look at some of the brain science discoveries. And then we'll do kind of a nice overview to some of the issues that concern you all here with some of the consequences of drinking by young people. And then we'll spend probably about half of our time here with what to do, because that's where the rubber meets the road. That's what you all are here for, is how can you pull together as a community in your respective settings with young people and actually make a difference. Yeah, is that better? Okay, so we should keep the lights off? Okay, let's do that. Let's start with a health paradox of adolescence. Now, as you know, a paradox is where two seemingly opposite things are true at the same time. And the paradox for adolescence kind of goes like this. On one hand, during this period, this very specific period of the lifespan, abilities, resilience, measures of reaction time, speed, and strength are some of the highest compared to any other period of the lifespan. And in fact, by about 18, 19, age 20, it's all downhill after that, right? Right? But on the other hand, clinical problems during this very same period of development, mortality rates increase 200 to 300%. Hence a paradox. It's a period of opportunity and strength and resilience, and it's a period of vulnerability. And the essence of the vulnerability, the primary causes of the clinical problems, of mortality rates during adolescence, seem to be related to difficulties that young people have controlling behavior and controlling emotion. And what part of the body do we have to take a look at to look at what's going on with control, behavior, and emotion? We got to look at the brain. In the last 10 years, we know more about the developing human brain than ever before as a civilization, really. And let's take a look inside the adolescent brain. This knowledge is brought to us by advances in technology such as MRI, imaging. So we've got imaging technology that allows scientists to take a look at the living, breathing, developing human brain over time. And a couple of key findings on this. Now, it's a very technical, complicated science, of course. And so the summary that I'm going to offer up here is an oversimplification. But it's worth noting that the findings that you're going to see here are really related to normal adolescent development. So the scientists are starting with teenagers, looking at their brains, who don't have alcohol or drug problems, do not have depression, anxiety, or mental health problems, or behavioral sorts of difficulties. So these are normal kids. What does normal brain development look like? The first finding is that the onset of adolescence, starting about age 10, 11, 12, with the onset of adolescence, the brain begins profound changes on the level of structure. So there's actually remodeling that's occurring in the teen brain. So, for example, over time, chronologically, with age 5, brain image all the way over there to the left, up to age 20. And what the blue you see, that's the areas of the brain that are really developing. We thought as a society, not even 15 years ago, that the brain was pretty well cooked and out of the oven by age 5, by middle childhood. And that is just simply not the case, that with the onset of adolescence, the brain undergoes unique changes. Now, let's take a little closer look at the architecture of the brain. 3 particular brains within one brain. And these have developed over time. The base of the brain and the inside of the brain and the back of the brain has been referred to as the reptilian brain. What do you think that part of the brain, the most ancient part of our brains, what do you think that that's responsible for? Survival, yeah. Yeah, and physical kind of functions. So the reptilian part of our brain keeps us breathing at night when we're sleeping, keeps our heart beating. And most basic survival and coordinating physical activity. Now, the second most ancient part of our brain is very much embedded in the midsection of our brain. It's called the limbic brain, the limbic system. That part of the brain, also very ancient, is responsible for emotion and memory and reward, is deeply embedded in the brain. And then finally, what covers 4/5 of the human brain on the outside is called neocortex or new cortex. This is a newer part of the brain. And what can you imagine this part of the brain might be responsible for? Parts of it, at least. Learning, yes, definitely. Other things. So thinking is involved in that, right? Other things in neocortex here. Decision-making, yes, very crucially. And there's a specific part of neocortex that we'll take a look at in a moment. So you absolutely have it here. Cognition, information processing, learning, also decision-making, thinking things through. That's one part of neocortex. Now, what we want to spend time on here is limbic brain and the neocortex, thinking about the teen brain, because the reptilian brain is really the first part of our brains to develop. Let's take a look at the limbic brain, though. 2 particular structures. The first one, the amygdala, is really responsible for regulating emotion. And then the nucleus accumbens, this very small little pea-sized structure, deeply embedded in the brain, is responsible for directing motivation. Now, between these 2 brain structures, we have what is popularly referred to as the reward circuitry of the human brain, where we're kind of driven and directed towards experiences that feel satisfying, that feel rewarding. This is kind of like our go circuitry. Hit the accelerator. Now, during adolescence, this part of the brain is undergoing quite a bit of changes. And let me detail a couple of changes. Number 1, this part of the brain is overactive. It is on overdrive. That reward is very salient. It really captures the attention of young people, of teenagers. And relationships are a part of that. But still developing is motivation and controlling emotions, emotional regulation. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Neocortex. As was mentioned, one of the chief responsibilities of the neocortex and the prefrontal cortex right behind the forehead of human beings is judgment, decision-making, planning ahead, anticipating consequences of our decisions. That area of the brain is kind of like the chief executive. Right behind the forehead, it is where we have our stop circuitry. It is where we are able to apply the brakes on behavior, where we're able to control emotions. And a couple of things going on with